Mom shut her down instantly. How did she know what Lena would say?
His eyes didn't leave me as I lifted the glass. Go on, drink, he said, smiling. We were at his parents' dinner table, everyone watching, my husband sitting too still, his untouched glass right beside mine. Something smelled off, bitter, metallic. And he knew it, he kept watching mine, not his. So, instead of drinking, before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I stood up, walked around the table, and set the glass in front of his sister. The same sister who'd spent years tearing me down. She rolled her eyes and drank it. Daniel's smile didn't fade. But then, a chair scraped hard against the floor. His eyes didn't leave me as I lifted the glass. Go on, drink, he said, smiling. We were at his parents' dinner table, everyone watching, my husband sitting too still, his untouched glass right beside mine. Something smelled off, bitter, metallic. And he knew it, he kept watching mine, not his. So, instead of drinking, I stood up, walked around the table, and set the glass in front of his sister. The same sister who'd spent years tearing me down. She rolled her eyes and drank it. Daniel's smile didn't fade. But then, a chair scraped hard against the floor. For a second, no one moved. Then Lila's hand slipped off the table edge, her fingers twitching as the empty glass rolled and shattered against the tile. The sound snapped everyone out of it, sharp, loud, wrong. Lila? Their mother's voice cracked instantly. Lila didn't answer. Her face had gone pale in a way I'd never seen before, drained, almost gray. She tried to push herself up, but her arm buckled beneath her like it didn't belong to her. Daniel stood up slowly. Too slowly. Not panicked, not confused. Just watching. What did you... Lila coughed, her voice rough, her hand clutching at her throat now. Their father knocked his chair back, rushing toward her, but Daniel stepped in first, placing a hand on her shoulder like he was in control of the situation. Hey, it's fine, he said, too calm. You probably just drank too fast. Too fast? My stomach dropped. She'd taken one sip. I was still standing where I'd left her, my hand hovering in the air where the glass used to be. The smell lingered faintly, like something burned into my memory now. Bitter, metallic. Wrong. And Daniel still hadn't touched his own drink. Not even once. Call someone, their mother snapped, already fumbling for her phone as Lila's breathing turned uneven, shallow. That's when Lila's eyes found mine. Not angry, not mocking, terrified. And as her fingers weakly reached toward me, her lips barely moved, but I saw it clearly. Wasn't for me. The room tilted. I looked up at Daniel. He was already looking at me. And this time, he wasn't smiling. Lila hit the floor before anyone could catch her. Her body crumpled sideways, knocking the chair over with a violent scrape that echoed through the dining room. Their mother screamed. Their father dropped to his knees beside her, trying to lift her head, calling her name over and over. Lila, stay with me. But Lila's eyes were unfocused now, her breaths shallow and uneven, like each one took effort. And Daniel didn't move toward her right away. He looked at the glass. The broken pieces scattered across the floor, the thin red streak of wine soaking into the grout. Then his eyes flicked to me. Just for a second, but it was enough. Call an ambulance, I said, my voice sharper than I expected, cutting through the chaos. I already am, their mother snapped, pacing, shaking. Daniel finally crouched beside Lila, placing a hand on her shoulder, but even that felt staged, controlled. What do you feel? He asked her, his tone steady, clinical. Not scared. Not desperate. Calculated. I can't, Lila gasped, her fingers clawing weakly at his sleeve. My throat. She probably just reacted to something, Daniel said quickly, louder now, like he needed everyone to hear it. Maybe alcohol. She barely drank. I cut in. He didn't look at me. Didn't acknowledge it. Instead, his foot shifted subtle, almost invisible, and pushed a larger shard of the broken glass farther under the table, away from view. My chest tightened. Why would he do that? Sirens began to wail faintly in the distance, growing louder. Lila's grip on Daniel slipped, her arm falling limply to the floor. Their father cursed under his breath, trying to keep her conscious. Stay with me, sweetheart. Stay with me. Daniel stood up again suddenly, turning toward me. "Why did you move the glass?" he asked, his voice low. There it was. Not concern. Not confusion. That. "I didn't want it," I said just as quietly. His jaw tightened. "You made a scene." "A scene?" I stared at him, something cold settling into place inside me. "I switched a glass," I said. "That's all." His eyes locked onto mine now. Sharp. Measuring. Dangerously focused. The sirens were right outside now, lights flashing through the windows, painting the walls in red and blue. As paramedics rushed in, the room exploded into movement again, questions, urgency, instructions being shouted. But Daniel didn't step away. He leaned in just enough that only I could hear him. And under all that noise, all that chaos, his voice stayed perfectly calm. "You shouldn't have done that." By the time we reached the hospital, Daniel hadn't left my side once. Not out of concern, out of control. Every time someone asked a question, he answered first. Every time I slowed down, he touched my arm lightly, but firm enough to steer me forward, to keep me close. Like he didn't trust what I might say if I was alone. "She just collapsed?" a nurse asked as they wheeled Lila through the ER doors. Daniel nodded smoothly. "Yeah, we were having dinner, she had a drink, and then he gestured vaguely, controlled, practiced. That happened." "What kind of drink?" "Wine," he said. I poured it. I felt that land. The nurse glanced at me. "Did anyone else drink it?" Daniel answered again. "My wife was about to, but she switched seats last second." That wasn't what happened. I didn't correct him. Not yet. They rushed Lila out of sight, leaving the rest of us in the waiting area under harsh fluorescent lights. The air smelled sterile, sharp, nothing like that bitter scent still stuck in my memory. Minutes stretched. Then a doctor finally came out. "She's stable for now," he said. "But we're concerned. This doesn't look like alcohol-related distress." A pause. "We're running toxicology." The word hung there. Toxicology. Their mother started crying again, their father pacing, running a hand through his hair. "And Daniel?" Daniel exhaled slowly, like he was preparing himself, not reacting. "Are you saying she was poisoned?" I asked. The doctor didn't answer directly. "We'll know more soon." That was enough. Within the hour, police arrived. 2 officers, calm, observant. And suddenly, the room shifted from panic to investigation. "Who prepared the drinks?" one of them asked. Daniel didn't hesitate. "I did." "Who drank from the glass?" "My sister." "And was she the intended person to receive that drink?" A beat. A small one. "But I saw it." Daniel tilted his head slightly. "Well, my wife had it first." There it was again. Careful. Subtle. Redirecting. The officer turned to me. "Ma'am, can you walk us through exactly what happened?" Before I could answer, Daniel spoke again, soft but firm. "She moved it," he said. "I don't know why, but she did." My pulse spiked. Not confusion. Not curiosity. He was placing it. Planting it. I finally looked at him fully. "That's not what happened." His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. A flicker. A warning. The officer raised a hand slightly. "Let her speak." Silence fell between us. For the first time since the dinner, I wasn't being spoken over. I inhaled slowly. He poured the drinks. All of them. He told me to drink mine. Daniel's jaw tightened. I kept going, and he didn't touch his. Another officer stepped forward slightly, exchanging a look with his partner. That detail mattered. I could see it. Just then, a nurse approached me quietly, her voice low. "Can I speak with you for a moment?" Daniel's head turned sharply. Too sharply, but I followed her anyway. She led me a few steps down the hall, just far enough to be out of immediate earshot. Her expression was careful, measured. "The substance we're seeing," she said quietly, "this wasn't accidental. The dosage, it was calculated." My stomach dropped. Calculated. Not a mistake. Not random. Planned. I felt a chill run through me as everything started aligning in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. Behind me, I could feel Daniel watching. Waiting. When I turned back, he was already there, closer than I expected. "How much did you tell them?" he asked under his breath. Not what happened. Not "are you okay?" That. I stared at him, something inside me finally locking into place. You're not worried about her, I said quietly. His eyes didn't waver. I'm worried about you, he replied. A beat. Then softer. You need to be careful what you say. Not we. You. And that was the moment it became undeniable. This wasn't fear. This wasn't panic. This was damage control. And whatever he had done, he wasn't afraid of the truth coming out. He was afraid of me putting it together. Lila didn't die. But when she woke up, everything changed. The next morning, the hospital felt quieter but heavier, like something had settled into place overnight. Police were still there. Nurses moved differently around our room, more cautious, more aware. And Daniel couldn't sit still anymore. He paced the hallway, checked his phone constantly, spoke in short, controlled bursts whenever anyone approached, but every few minutes, his eyes found me. Me. Not his sister. Not his parents. Me. Inside the room, Lila lay propped up against stiff white pillows, her skin still pale, her voice thinner than I'd ever heard it. They said, "It was poison," she rasped. I nodded slowly, pulling a chair closer. Yeah. Her eyes flickered toward the door, then back to me. For once, there was no edge, no superiority, just something raw. I heard him, she said quietly. Last night, before dinner. My chest tightened. Heard what? In the kitchen. On the phone. She swallowed, wincing slightly. He said something about timing, about paperwork. I thought it was work. Money, maybe. Paperwork. My mind snapped to it instantly. The insurance policy. 3 days ago, Daniel had sat across from me at our kitchen table, sliding the documents forward with a calm smile. It's just smart planning, he'd said. We should both be covered. He'd pushed for it, urgently. I hadn't questioned it. Until now, I didn't think Lila started, her voice shaking faintly. I didn't think it was this. Neither had I. A silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Then I stood up. I need to check something, I said. Out in the hallway, Daniel was at the far end, speaking quietly into his phone. He turned slightly when he saw me, lowering his voice even more. I didn't go to him. I went the other direction toward the waiting area where he'd left his jacket. His phone wasn't there. But when he came back a few minutes later, he set it down on the chair beside him without thinking. That was the moment. Daniel, I said, keeping my voice steady, can you grab me a coffee? He hesitated. Just for a second, then nodded. Yeah, stay here. As soon as he turned the corner, I picked up the phone. Locked? But his notifications were still visible. One message sat at the top. Recent. Not opened. Unknown number. My thumb hovered for half a second. Then I read it. Once she signs, you're free. Make sure it's clean. My hand went cold. Free. Clean. This wasn't impulse. This wasn't anger. This was a plan. And I had been the center of it. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. I set the phone back exactly where it was, my heart pounding so hard it felt visible. When Daniel came back, he handed me the coffee like nothing had happened. Like everything was still under control. But minutes later, the police returned. Different energy this time. More direct. One of the officers stepped forward, glancing between us before speaking. We've identified the source of the toxin. Daniel didn't move. It was purchased through a corporate supplier, the officer continued, under an account tied to your company. Silence. Thick. Immediate. I turned slowly. Daniel was standing right behind them. And for the first time since this started, he looked like he hadn't planned for this part. The shift was immediate. The moment the officer said it, something in the room snapped into place, like all the scattered pieces finally aligned into something solid, undeniable. Daniel didn't argue right away. He didn't deny it. He just stood there, eyes moving briefly from the officer, to me, to the floor, calculating, like he was searching for a version of this that still worked in his favor. There has to be some mistake, he said finally, his voice steady, but thinner now. A lot of people have access to that account. The officer didn't react. We also have purchase timestamps and authorization logs. A pause. Signed under your credentials. That was it. No more space to maneuver. No, Daniel said, sharper this time. That doesn't mean... It means, the second officer cut in calmly, you acquired a controlled substance, administered it in a private setting, and failed to report the incident accurately. Silence swallowed the rest of his sentence. I watched him, then really watched him. The man who had sat across from me for years, who had smiled, reassured, explained things away, who had told me, just hours ago, to drink. Go on, drink. He finally looked at me fully. And for the first time, there was no control left in his expression. You switched the glass, he said quietly. Not denial. Not apology. Just that. Yes, I answered. Another pause. Something flickered in his face. Frustration, realization, something close to anger, but restrained. That wasn't for her. The words landed flat. Precise. Confirming everything? Behind us, I heard movement. Lila's hospital door opening slightly, their mother's quiet voice trying to keep her inside. But it was too late. The truth was already in the room. The officers stepped closer. Daniel Hayes, one of them said, pulling out cuffs. You're under arrest for attempted murder. He didn't resist. Didn't fight. He just looked at me one last time as they took his wrists. And in that look, there was no confusion left. Only the collapse of something that had been carefully built and quietly hidden. The next few days moved fast. Too fast. Statements, reports, repeating the same sequence over and over again, every detail of that dinner dissected, documented, confirmed. The wine, the smell, the way he watched, the way he didn't drink. The insurance policy surfaced within hours, a large payout, recently finalized, urgent, premeditation, clear, calculated. His company suspended him immediately, then terminated him once the investigation expanded into misuse of corporate purchasing channels. Legal teams got involved, more charges followed. Everything unraveled. Lila recovered, physically at least. Her voice stayed strained, slightly rough, like something in her throat never fully healed. The doctors said it was likely permanent. She didn't say much to me after that. Not insults. Not apologies. Just distance. Sometimes she'd look at me like she was trying to reconcile something she didn't want to understand, that the moment meant for me had rewritten everything for her. Daniel's parents stopped calling. Not out of anger, but absence. Like they didn't know where to place any of it. As for me, I moved out within a week, filed for divorce immediately, canceled the policy. Every document he had pushed in front of me, every smart decision, every calm explanation, it all looked different now. Clearer, simpler, intentional. Weeks later, I sat alone in my apartment. Quiet. No tension, no careful conversations, no second-guessing every glance across a dinner table. Just silence. And memory. The glass in my hand. The smell I almost ignored. His voice, soft, certain. Go on, drink. I can still see the way he watched me. Waiting. Expecting. Certain I would follow through. But I didn't. I paused. I questioned it. And then I moved the glass. 12 minutes. That's all it took. 12 minutes for everything to fall apart. And for me to see exactly who I had been sitting across from all along.
If you were that officer, would you have caught it or walk away like everyone else?